Since ancient times, humanity has been haunted by legends and tales of shape-shifting creatures able to transform into a terrifying lupine monster under the light of the full moon. Werewolf legends have persisted across cultures for centuries, horrifying and thrilling people around the world with their accounts of metamorphosis, superhuman strength and bloodlust. So let's uncover the beast within by exploring the fascinating history and lore around werewolves. Some of the earliest examples of werewolf legends hail from ancient Greek mythology, which is rife with tales of human transformation into wolves or other animals as punishment for angering the gods. Take the myth of Lycaon, whose name gave us the word lycanthropy, the delusion that one has transformed into a wolf. As the story goes, Lycaon angered Zeus by serving him human flesh, so the king of the gods turned him into a wolf as an act of vengeance. Other early werewolf legends include the Nuri people of Scythia, whose warriors were said to transform yearly into wolf form. Similar shape-shifting legends are also present in Norse, Celtic, Slavic and Native American folklore. Some believe werewolf myths originated as an attempt by early humans to explain the brutality of their enemies, for what better way to demonize your rivals than by claiming they were literal beasts? Others propose werewolf legends arose from rare medical conditions that caused excessive hair growth or aggression. There are also theories these myths stem from shamanic wolf or bear cult rituals where participants donned animal pelts. Whatever the root, by the medieval period, belief in werewolves was entrenched across Europe. The European werewolf. In the Middle Ages and Renaissance era, werewolf trials and executions were common across France, Germany, the Baltics and other areas as the folklore became part of the witchcraft hysteria of that era. One of the most infamous cases was the werewolf of Bedburg in the 16th century. In 1589, a brutal series of murders took place in the town of Bedburg, near Cologne. 18 victims were mutilated and partially devoured. When authorities captured a man named Peter Stump, he confessed to being a werewolf and servant of Satan, and was consequently executed. In other trials of the period, the belief in silver as a weapon against werewolves was popularized, as the metal was believed to repel evil. The lore around silver held that it could burn werewolves' skin and counteracted their supernatural abilities. The Fela, Irish werewolves. While continental Europe experienced a brutal witch hunt against accused werewolves, Ireland had its own parallel werewolf myth. That of the Fela, who according to legend were an ancient warrior tribe, descended from a druid who had cursed them to alternate between human and wolf forms. They retained their human intelligence and memory while shapeshifted into tremendously powerful ravenous wolf beasts. The Fela were viewed as both bloodthirsty scourges and protectors. Some tales depict them as allies against invading forces like the Vikings. The Norse skinwalkers. Just as the Celts had the Fela, Scandinavia had its own breed of werewolves, skinwalkers, who could shed their human forms through shedding their skin. Stories of the skinwalkers were common in Nordic folklore. They spoke of the Ulfhethna, meaning wolf coats, who took the shape of wolves. Members of this warrior cult would wear wolf pelts and descend into trance-like states of heightened bloodlust during battles. Native American shape-shifting legends. Werewolf-adjacent legends are also present in the Americas, where native tribes had their own skinwalkers, or Yeenaldlushi, capable of shifting between human and animal forms. Among the Navajo, skinwalkers were seen as wicked entities capable of transforming into animals like wolves, coyotes, foxes and bears. Their evil powers came from the violation of taboos, and they were greatly feared. The Pueblo people had similar myths of skinwalkers that could only change into animal shapes to inflict misfortune on others. Such folklore persists today, with modern belief in skinwalkers among some tribes in the American Southwest. But in many cases, the beliefs have been amalgamated with European werewolf myths. While tales of werewolves have existed for millennia, it wasn't until the 20th century that they exploded into the pop culture phenomena we know today. It was the golden age of monster movies through the 1930s and 50s that brought werewolves fully into the mainstream. The 1941 Universal horror film, The Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr., was a massive hit and codified numerous werewolf conventions that subsequent films would follow, including a protagonist afflicted with the curse of lycanthropy through a bite or scratch, the monthly transformation under the full moon, uncontrollable violence, followed by the inability to recall the transformation, superhuman senses and physical prowess, and vulnerability to silver weapons. After The Wolfman, Universal unleashed several more films featuring the Wolfman, like Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman in 1943 and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein in 1948. The 1950s brought classics like I Was a Teenage Werewolf in 1957, and cult B-movies galore that played on the teenage rebellion themes of the era. As the decades progressed, werewolves continued appearing in horror films. In 1981, a new gold standard in werewolf movies arrived, An American Werewolf in London. Writer-director John Landis combined amazing Rick Baker makeup effects with a deft balance of horror and dark humor to revitalize the genre. The film's agonizing on-screen transformation sequence proved instantly iconic and influential. Major werewolf films since then have included The Howling, also in 1981, 1984's The Company of Wolves, cult classic Ginger Snaps in 2000, Dog Soldiers in 2002, and the Underworld series beginning in 2003. In the 21st century, werewolf tales have exploded across novels, TV shows, games, and comics with a mixture of traditional and modern takes. On the book front, titles like the Kitty Norville series by Carrie Vaughan and the Wolfman novel by Nicholas Bacchero have explored new angles on lycanthropy through strong characterization. The best-selling Anita Blake vampire hunter novels by Laurel K. Hamilton depict an alternate universe where werewolves and vampires exist. Werewolves have been everywhere on television too. Series like Bitten, Hemlock Grove, Teen Wolf, and Supernatural have all featured werewolf characters and expanded their lore in creative ways. In the gaming space, titles ranging from the classic Castlevania on NES to modern juggernauts like The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim feature werewolves, and tabletop games like Werewolf the Apocalypse provide rich role-playing experiences to immerse yourself in werewolf society. Comics have also embraced werewolves. In the Marvel Universe, characters like Jack Russell, the Werewolf by Night, have battled lycanthropy, while Image Comics had the astounding Wolfman, a spin-off of Robert Kirkman's Invincible series. One of the most prominent ways werewolves are depicted in modern pop culture is in opposition to another classic monster, the vampire. From 1980s movies to today's young adult novels, these creatures of the night are frequently portrayed as adversaries locked in eternal conflict. Some of the most famous examples are to be found in major series and franchises, including the Underworld films, which depict an ancestral war between werewolves called Lycans and aristocratic vampires. The Lycans are portrayed as former slaves oppressed by the vampires before rebelling. True Blood, which featured episodes and storylines where werewolves like Alcide Herveau were constantly at odds with vampires. And teen drama The Vampire Diaries, which devoted significant arcs to staging vampires against werewolves in the town of Mystic Falls. From their humble origins in ancient folklore and superstition to their explosion across modern pop culture, werewolves have endured as one of our most compelling monsters and dark fantasy figures. At their core, these shape-shifting creatures represent the cycle of the lunar moon, tapping into primal associations with wildness, savagery, and forces beyond human control. They give form to our secret fears of losing oneself to animalistic impulses and inhuman transformations. Yet they also embody the allure of power, freedom, and embracing a more feral instinctual self, unfettered by the trappings of civilization. The call to shed the mundane and experience the thrill of metamorphosis still holds an undeniable appeal. Such dualistic themes help explain why werewolves have maintained relevance and popularity for so long. Time and again across stories in films, books, comics, and other media, werewolves have been used to explore ideas such as the duality of human nature and our civilized versus feral selves, mental illness, addiction, disability and losing control, cycles of violence, vengeance and intergenerational curses, sexual repression, teen angst and coming-of-age trials, and humanity's relationship to nature and the wilderness. These rich metaphorical possibilities combined with the sheer visual power of the half-human, half-wolf form have allowed werewolf narratives to constantly reinvent themselves for new eras and audiences. Even when trends briefly cooled towards these peculiar shapeshifters, it never took long for some new creator to resurface with a novel spin that instantly reignited the public's imagination and fascination with them. There's simply an elemental evergreen quality to werewolves that has allowed them to persevere. Their seamless merging of human and animal parts, their dual lives as ordinary people and rampaging beasts, and their cycle of transformation all create space for endless retellings and interpretations. Whether we envision them as accursed souls deserving of pity, bloodthirsty scourges to be destroyed, or empowered beings in touch with wildness, werewolves will surely continue to prowl the full moonlit nights of our imagination. They remind us that no matter how civilized humanity becomes, there will always exist an insatiable lust to shed our mundane constraints and embrace the beast within.